Hey everyone, welcome back to the Alberta Roundup. I'm your host, Rachel Emmanuel. I hope that you guys are having a great weekend so far. Let's take a look at what happened this week in Alberta politics. Deena Hinshaw has been hired in BC. There's a new public safety strategy for Edmonton. And finally, the UCP's recovery plan for addictions and homelessness is hitting a big milestone this month. All that and more happening now on the Alberta Roundup. Okay guys, let's dive into this first story here because I know you guys are going to have a lot to say about it. Alberta's former Chief Medical Health Officer, Dr. Deena Hinshaw, has been given a 6-month contract in BC as the Deputy Provincial Health Officer. I'm sure you guys remember that during the United Conservative Party leadership race this past summer, Danielle Smith, now the Premier, campaigned on promises to do away with Deena Hinshaw and the COVID-19 restrictions she implemented. Smith made good on those promises very quickly after being elected, and Hinshaw was turfed in November. But the BC government says Hinshaw will, quote, support the work of the Office of the Provincial Health Officer, Dr. Bonnie Henry, while filling in for another Deputy Provincial Health Officer. In a statement, Henry wrote, quote, I feel very fortunate to work alongside such talented and dedicated public health experts, and I know their expertise will be a great assistance as we emerge from the pandemic and continue to address the many public health challenges facing the province. Under Hinshaw's leadership during the COVID-19 pandemic, the Kenney government implemented vaccine passports and closed schools and churches for a while. And you guys likely remember the backlash Hinshaw received when it was revealed that she took home a $228,000 COVID bonus in 2021. Now that was on top of her over $360,000 salary. So in 2021, she took home well over $500,000. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about Hinshaw getting hired in BC. Another big story this week is that the Alberta government announced measures to improve safety in Edmonton. If you guys live in Edmonton, you know how unsafe the city can be, especially if you need to use public transit. So the Alberta government made an announcement to that effect earlier this week. Take a listen to those comments now.
When the provincial government announced the Edmonton Task Force, I made it very clear that action must be taken immediately. Today, I'm proud to share that we are doing just that. In partnership with the Edmonton Police Service, Alberta Sheriffs are being redeployed to the downtown streets and keeping Edmontonians safe. By establishing a more visible presence with more boots on the ground, we can deter crime and make Albertans who live, work, and visit these communities feel safe. With the help of Alberta Sheriffs, EPS can run these patrols 7 days a week and cover a larger geographic area. A larger area may include specific LRT locations, the pedway system, and other areas of high crime and social disorder.
And that announcement was met with a positive reaction from Edmonton's Chinatown community. Representatives said that crime has cost them millions of dollars in damages.
In the past year, Chinatown has suffered numerous and unprecedented safety issues in our community. We have suffered from millions of dollars worth of property damages. We have loss of businesses. We have lost our personal safety aspect of everything, and including life itself. So with this action by the province and the police, I would like to thank you because without action, there will be no moving forward.
Moving on to our next story here, for those of you who have kids at home, you might be following the federal and provincial government's efforts to provide $10 a day child daycare. In November 2021, Alberta and Ottawa agreed on a $3.8 billion deal to reduce childcare to $10 a day in the province within 5 years. The original deal included plans to open 42,500 new nonprofit spaces. Tuesday's announcement would add an additional 22,500 spaces with the hopes of having them operational by 2025 to 2026. The deal, officially called the Canada-Alberta Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare Agreement, that is an absolute mouthful. I feel like they could have come up with a better name. It's expected to save parents between $450 and $635 per month for each child receiving full-time care. That's an absolutely massive amount of savings. It's good news for parents who rely on those spaces. Okay, moving into our daily comment roundup. Last week, we spent a lot of time going over the CBC story. You guys remember the details, I'm sure. CBC has written 2 stories alleging that the Premier has in some way or another put pressure on the Justice Minister and Crown prosecutors regarding cases related to the COVID-19 pandemic and the Coutts border blockade. No emails or evidence of other exchanges between the Premier and the Crown prosecutors being inappropriate has been uncovered, and the Premier has called the CBC's reporting defamatory and asked them to issue a retraction and an apology. The CBC is standing behind their reporting, as we discussed last week. And here's what you guys had to say about it. Sub, if you are unapologetically pro-life, said anyone with even a smidge of common sense knows government-funded equates to government shell. Their reporting here did nothing but strengthen this beautiful lady's support. Sincerely looking forward to our upcoming provincial election in May, just so I can vote for this woman. Alducho357 wrote, the CBC has been a liberal laundromat for decades. Not just defund, but criminal charges applied. I tried to find a couple comments that were in support of the CBC, but I'm sure you guys will be shocked to learn I just couldn't find any. Okay, moving into what we're watching in the weeks to come, I think this is a really important story because it relates to public safety in our cities across Alberta. And of course across Canada, but Alberta is really the only province that's taking serious action to address the crisis of homelessness and addiction right now. In fact, the United Conservative Party government's first major project in their efforts to stem this crisis is opening later this month. It's the size of a football field, and it's the first of its kind in Alberta. It's also the first of 6 massive recovery communities currently being built by the province. I was able to go get a tour of it earlier this week, and so we're going to show some of that footage for you now. I also spoke to Marshall Smith about the recovery community. He is Alberta Premier Danielle Smith's chief of staff, and he's also a recovered addict of 17 years. A couple weeks ago, I wrote a profile on Marshall, who spent 4 years living on Vancouver streets as a homeless drug addict. If you guys haven't read that profile already, you should absolutely go check it out. In the past 4 years, Marshall has been guiding the UCP's approach to homelessness and addiction. He says previous governments of all political spectrums haven't had the political will to appropriately plan, fund, and build a proper system of care for those struggling. But that's about to change in Alberta as the province trades what he calls decades of neglect for a breathtaking system of care. Marshall told me the province hopes to build 11 in total, but details on other facilities are not yet public. The facilities cost around $20 million each to build, and programs can last from 1 month to 1 year depending on the client's needs. And finally, you guys, I just wanted to end the show on a positive note for you guys. I'm sure most of you will be relieved to hear this. We've been covering the House of Commons Public Safety Committee for a while, and the Liberal government's very last-minute efforts to ban hundreds more models of semi-automatic shotguns and rifles, including those primarily used by hunters, sport shooters, and farmers. Well, on Friday morning, after weeks of very loud opposition from both the Conservatives and the NDP, the Liberal government withdrew those amendments. I've no doubt that some of you will be breathing a sigh of relief. Your hunting rifles are safe for now. Okay, guys, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to comment below and let me know what you think about Hinshaw taking a job in BC. I hope that you guys have a great rest of your weekend, and God bless.